I called him unemployed and underperforming. He FAFO'd and found a sugar mama. I called him unemployed and underperforming. He's not just unemployed, she whispered with the kind of calm that cut sharper than rage. He's underperforming too. The words didn't echo once. They replayed like a verdict. In that one sentence, she'd reduced years of his stumbling, his half-starts and half-finishes into a headline he could never scrub off. It had been 3 months since she left. 3 months since he heard the click of her suitcase, wheels, her heels fading into the hallway, and the silence that moved in to stay. Every job board he scrolled, every polite rejection he read felt branded by that insult, underperforming. If you find value in real stories told with clarity and truth, make sure to subscribe to stay informed with Left Woman Loud. He was 27. A scattershot resume, stints at startups that burned bright and fizzled fast, a warehouse gig that lasted one blistering summer, and freelance coding contracts that vanished as quickly as they came. She was 29, already a project manager in a company with glass offices and catered lunches, posting motivational quotes on LinkedIn, brunching on weekends, and slipping into a life where upward was the only direction. When she said underperforming, she hadn't only meant work. She'd meant him. The way he froze instead of trying. The way he met her intimacy with half-hearted effort. The way he avoided the mirror. And maybe, just maybe, the way he made her believe she was alone, even while lying beside her. On a Tuesday afternoon that sagged with failure, Noah sat hunched in a dim cafe, job postings open on his laptop like windows to futures that never invited him in. His coffee went cold. His eyes blurred. His thoughts kept circling the same cruel question: would anyone ever bet on me again? That was when the notification appeared. A forum he barely remembered joining. A reply to a half-joke he'd written weeks ago. At this point, I just need a sugar mama. The reply: careful what you wish for. They exist, and some are looking. Spam, a trap, or a door. That night, Noah scrolled through profiles he once mocked. Women with bios as sharp as manifestos. Women who built empires but slept in beds too big. Women whose loneliness dressed in luxury. And then her. Late 40s, hair sleek, gaze unflinching. Not soft, not cold. A look that promised she could dismantle you with a sentence or save you with one. Her bio read, I built my empire. I don't have time for boys pretending to be men. I want someone who listens. Someone who shows up. Someone who makes an evening mean something. If you're here to waste time, don't. Noah's fingers hovered. He typed, deleted, typed again. I don't know if I qualify as a man in your world, but I'm tired of being treated like I don't qualify anywhere else. If that makes sense, maybe we should talk. He expected silence, mockery, or worse, nothing. Instead, less than an hour later, her reply: meet me. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Wear something that doesn't look like you just failed another interview. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her words replaying beside his ex's unemployed, underperforming. Maybe she was right. Maybe that was who he was. But tomorrow would decide whether that label buried him, or became the reason he rose again. What Noah didn't know was that the woman waiting for him at that dinner already had a clock ticking against her, one that would turn their arrangement into something closer to survival than desire. Terms and Candles Montrose was the kind of restaurant where whispers seemed louder than laughter. White tablecloths glowed beneath soft amber light chandeliers, casting reflections into half-empty wine glasses. Noah adjusted his collar for the 100th time as he approached the hostess stand. She's waiting, the hostess said, leading him to a corner booth that felt both private and exposed. She was already there. Elise. Her hair swept neatly back, her eyes sharp and calm, a glass of red wine in hand. Not a glance at her phone, not a twitch of impatience. You're on time, she said as he slid into the seat across from her. I thought that was expected. It is, she said. But in my world, expectation and delivery rarely align. So yes, valuable. Noah's throat tightened. He wanted to ask if he himself was valuable, but he knew better than to beg for validation in the first 5 minutes. The waiter poured water. Menus were handed out but ignored. Elise leaned in slightly. You know why you're here? Noah hesitated. To see if I can be enough. Her smile curved, not unkind. Enough for what? For me, for you, or for the story you'll tell yourself when you wake up tomorrow? He swallowed. All of it. Elise set down her glass with precision. I'll be direct. I don't want to fix you. I won't play mother or therapist or sponsor. If you're looking for those, find them elsewhere. I'm not asking you to fix me, Noah said quickly. I just don't want to feel invisible anymore. You want to be seen, that I can work with. She unfolded a napkin, placed it neatly on her lap, and began outlining terms as if this were a negotiation meeting, which in truth it was. 2 nights a week guaranteed. Dinners followed by time together, sometimes intimacy, sometimes conversation. A monthly allowance reviewed every quarter. Absolute discretion. Mutual respect. In return, she promised him something far less tangible: presence, attention, a seat at her table, and perhaps in her life. I need softness without lies, she said. Presence without chaos. Do you understand? Noah nodded, though part of him burned with shame. Another part, quieter, steadier, burned with relief. Your turn, Elise said. Set your terms. He blinked. I get to this isn't charity, Noah. It's an arrangement. Agreements work both ways. He thought for a long time, then said, no public humiliation. No cruelty disguised as play. I can't survive that again. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Non-negotiable, she said. Men like that taught me to build walls. I don't invite them back. Dinner arrived, salmon for her, steak for him. Conversation wove between questions and answers, silence and observation. She asked him about failure, not the resume version, but the kind that stains your reflection. He admitted to walking away from projects too soon, to freezing under pressure, to believing more in what he could have been than what he was. And yet Elise said softly, You're here. He looked down at his plate. Barely. No. Bravely, she corrected. The words sat heavy in his chest, not because he believed them yet, but because maybe she did. Dessert was declined. The check was signed without drama. At her car, a sleek black sedan waiting like a loyal shadow, Elise turned to him. You're not a pet project, Noah, she said. You learned my name. I invest in what I notice, she replied. Her gaze lingered on his. Don't make me regret it. He nodded. I'll try. Don't try. Show. She slid into the car, leaving him standing on the curb with the strange sensation that something in his life had just started, though it wore the disguise of a transaction. That night, Noah lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his ex's words replaying like a poisoned echo, unemployed, underperforming. But over them, faint yet insistent, Elise's words whispered back, barely know. Bravely. Which voice would he choose to believe? He set 2 alarms, ironed a shirt he'd nearly donated, and Googled how to tie a Windsor knot. Tomorrow he would step into her world again, and maybe, just maybe, into his own. The first time Noah entered Elise's penthouse, he would see a photograph on her piano, a relic of her past that would turn their arrangement into something far more complicated than money and companionship. The photograph on the piano. The elevator hummed like a secret as it carried Noah up. 42 floors later, the doors slid open to reveal a hallway wrapped in glass and silence. Elise's penthouse greeted him with the smell of citrus and something else, success polished into scent. A silk scarf was draped over a chair. Books stacked on a coffee table mid-conversation. One heel abandoned in the corner as if it had decided the night was too long. Drink, she asked, already pouring. Water, he said. I don't want to trip over my nerves. Her eyebrow lifted slightly, but she approved. Then he saw it. On the black grand piano stood a framed photograph, Elise, 6 years younger, standing beside a man in a tuxedo. His smile looked expensive. His hand gripped her waist like ownership, not affection. Elise's eyes sparkled in the picture, but differently, like a flame burning too brightly to last. Noah pointed. Is that my ex? She said flatly. The man who taught me how to build a company and how to disappear. Noah hesitated. Disappear from dinners, from promises, from me. She sipped her wine. He traded up often. You could call it ambition or cruelty. I call it both. They moved into the kitchen. Elise chopped garlic with surgical precision. Noah clumsily sliced bell peppers, nearly nicking his fingers. Why keep the photo, he asked. To remember, she said, not the man, the lesson. And what lesson was that exits come faster than arrivals, and sometimes being left is the tax for being strong. Her honesty pressed against his ribs. He felt an urge to confess too. So he did. He told her about the startup he co-founded with his best friend, how they'd raised money, flamed out, and ended up as strangers. He told her about his father who measured worth by results and his mother who measured it by effort. Two rulers that never aligned. "And what do you measure by?" Elise asked. Noah's throat tightened. "By the chance to be chosen, without audition." For the first time, her expression softened. "I want to be met where I live," she murmured, "not where my calendar pretends I do." Dinner was simple garlic pasta salad, too much wine. They ate at her marble counter conversation, unraveling knots neither had planned to share. Later on the couch, when she leaned in, the kiss wasn't possession. It wasn't pity, it was permission. Permission to step outside the labels burned into him: unemployed, underperforming. For a moment, Noah forgot the insult. For a moment, he belonged. But the photograph still watched. From its frame, tucked half hidden beneath a folded page, peeked out. When Elise left to take a call, Noah drifted closer. He didn't pull the paper free, but he read what he could: headlines, numbers, a familiar company name. It was hers. An article about a pending acquisition set to close in 3 months if nothing went wrong. Survival. The word hissed in his brain. From the first DM, from her urgency. Was he part of the arrangement or part of her strategy? When Elise returned, she caught him staring. "What happens if the deal falls through?" Noah asked. Her jaw tightened. "I don't fail," she said, and privately he pushed. She looked up at the ceiling as if it were a sky too heavy to hold. "Privately, I break. Then I rebuild." Noah sat back, conflicted. Was he comfort or camouflage, a man she saw, or a man she used? The piano photograph didn't answer. It just glowed in the dim light, a relic of who she'd been, a warning of what she could become again. That night, lying in her bed that smelled of lavender and wealth, Noah asked himself the question he feared most. Am I here because she wants me, or because she needs someone, anyone, not to leave? The next morning, Noah would discover his own name trending in the smallest way possible, his ex's Instagram story attached to a rumor that could shatter Elise's demand for discretion before their arrangement even began. The rumor economy. It started with 15 seconds. A boomerang on Instagram, champagne flutes, clinking sequins flashing in the background, laughter spilling over. Then the caption, sharp and merciless. "Some men can't hold a job but can hold a lap. Choose wisely, ladies. No tags, no names." But the city wasn't that big. Their circle wasn't either. And Noah knew before the DMs arrived, before the group chat lit up, that the shade was his. "Is this you? Tell me it's not true." Underperforming, where exactly? The pit in his stomach grew claws. He saw himself through their eyes. The ex-boyfriend turned into meme fodder. Unemployed, underperforming, and now kept. He drafted a message to his ex, deleted it, drafted another, deleted again. What could he even say? That she was wrong, that he wasn't the punchline she painted him to be. The truth was messier than a caption, and captions always won. His phone buzzed. "Elise, come by, tonight, early." Her penthouse looked different in daylight. Less mystery, more glass. Every surface reflecting the question, how long before whispers become headlines? "We can tighten discretion," Elise said, scrolling through something on her tablet. "Use my private garage, stagger your arrivals, delete old messages." "It's not just logistics," Noah said. His voice cracked. "It's the narrative. I'm a joke now." Elise looked up at him, steady and unflinching, then changed the joke. He almost laughed. How? By refusing to be defined by people who don't ask you anything. By writing your own story instead of starring in hers. She placed her glass down and leaned closer. "When I was 29, I hired a PR firm. Not for me, for them. The men who whispered about me at conferences, who turned ambition into rumor. Silence was costing me money, so I weaponized truth." Noah stared. "Is this costing you money?" "Potentially," she said. "But it's not going to cost me control." Her certainty steadied him more than he wanted to admit. Together, they built a counter-narrative. Elise connected him with a friend at a co-working space where he could just happen to be seen. He signed up to volunteer at a community kitchen, something his mother used to do, and something he'd wanted to try. And miraculously, after weeks of waiting, one of his interview pipelines called back to schedule a second round. It wasn't fabrication. It was curation. A way to remind the world that Noah was more than the story his ex fed them. That evening, as they ate takeout Thai food on her couch, Elise's phone buzzed. She read the message aloud. "We have a leak," her head of operations said through the speakerphone. "Someone's feeding the acquiring firm half-truths about arrangements." Noah froze. "They know about us. It's not a crime," Elise said, voice calm but eyes sharp. "But it's a weapon if spun the wrong way." Her operations chief added, "It reads like someone close. Maybe your ex, maybe someone inside who benefits if the deal collapses." When the call ended, silence wrapped the room. Noah looked at the piano photograph again. Her ex's smile gleamed in tuxedo black and white. "If men like him taught you exits," Noah said carefully, "maybe they also taught you enemies." Elise didn't deny it. She just poured more wine. Later that night, as Noah left through the private garage, the building's concierge handed him a manila envelope. "This came for you," he said, face neutral, tone unreadable. Noah frowned. For me, the envelope was light but heavy in implication. Inside were printout screenshots of his texts with Elise time-stamped photos of him entering the building, even notes about her weekly schedule circled in red ink. On the last page, a sticky note stuck out, scrawled in black marker, "Break the pattern, or it will break you." Noah's pulse pounded. Someone wasn't just gossiping. Someone was watching. Closely, he looked back toward the piano through Elise's window. The photograph glowed faintly in the lamplight, and for the first time he realized he wasn't just walking into her arrangement. He was walking into her battlefield. The next time Noah arrived, Elise would read the envelope in silence and admit that whoever sent it wasn't just after her company. They were after her, and now, by extension, him. The envelope. The concierge's voice still rang in Noah's ears as he rode the elevator up. "For Ms. Hart, but addressed to you." By the time Elise opened the envelope, the penthouse lights felt too bright, the city outside too exposed. She unfolded the pages one by one. Private texts. His words to her copied and collated. Photos of him entering her garage, time-stamped with precision. A spreadsheet mapping Elise's movements, red circles around high-exposure windows. At the bottom, the sticky note, "Break the pattern, or it will break you." Elise sat perfectly still. Her wineglass rested untouched, her hand curled tight around its stem. "This is surveillance," she said finally. "This is not gossip. This is reconnaissance." "By who?" Noah asked. His voice came out too thin. Elise looked at the photograph on the piano, the tuxedoed ex frozen in time. "Someone who benefits if I'm rattled before the deal closes." They brought in help the next morning. A man named Maiko, security consultant, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He asked no questions about their arrangement, only about vulnerabilities. "Who benefits?" he repeated. "Competitors," Elise said. "Or my ex. Which devices touch unsecured networks?" Noah raised a guilty hand. "I've been working in cafes, reusing old passwords." "Sabotage yourself, sabotage her," Miko muttered. "Change everything. New emails, encrypted apps. Assume your building has ears." That evening, Noah cooked dinner for Elise in her own kitchen. Ginger chicken rice like comfort. A recipe his mother made when storms rattled their windows. She sat at the counter watching him slice ginger too thick. "Why cook?" she asked softly. "Because it's something I can finish," he said. When he set the plate before her, Elise reached for the piano photo, pulled it from its frame and set it aside. "I keep this for the lesson, not the man." "What lesson?" Noah asked. "That sometimes winning is just refusing to repeat." He almost asked the dangerous question, "Are we repeating something?" Instead, he asked, "Are we building anything real?" Her answer was slower than usual. "We're building an honest room in a dishonest town." Noah looked at her, then really looked. Behind her sharpness was fatigue. Behind her certainty, a woman too tired of being doubted. For the first time, he felt the arrangement slipping its definition. Later, his phone buzzed with an email from a company he had all but given up on. "We'd like to move forward. Can you start Monday?" His chest surged with joy, then collapsed into fear. If he started, he'd have hours, commitments, a new identity not shaped by Elise's orbit. Could their arrangement survive his growth, or was it built to crumble once he stood on his own feet? When he told Elise, she surprised him. "Take it," she said without hesitation. "But our terms. If this arrangement can't survive your growth, it doesn't deserve you." Her eyes softened. "Noah, your value here was never your availability." That night, lying in his apartment, Noah stared at the job offer on his phone. He thought of his ex calling him underperforming. He thought of Elise calling him brave. He wondered if bravery was just performance with higher stakes. He pressed accept. On Monday, he walked into his new office. Desk small, computer old, view unimpressive. But it was his. At lunch, when he returned, there was a bouquet of white lilies on his desk. A card nestled among the stems. Congratulations. Now prove it. Signed a name he didn't recognize. That night, Elise would confirm the name on the card wasn't one of her friends. It was her ex's ally, someone who had every reason to make Noah feel watched and every resource to destroy them both. Prove it. The lilies stared at him all morning. White, too white, like innocence performing on stage. Every time Noah glanced at them, the card whispered louder, "Congratulations. Now prove it." The signature was a scrawl. No name he recognized. But when he sent Elise a photo, her reply came sharp and fast. Not a friend. A rival. "They're reminding us you're visible now." At lunch, his manager walked him through slides, roadmaps, deadlines, endless acronyms. Noah's eyes snagged on a single line: an integration with Elise's company. "You're partnering with them?" he asked too evenly. Exploring, his manager said, "Pending acquisition. You read the blogs." His stomach dropped. He could already see the gossip boyfriend pipeline inside track conflict of interest. That evening, he told Elise everything. She pinched the bridge of her nose, weary. "There's a world where that looks like collusion. And a world where it proves I pick good men as well as good markets. Which world are we in?" Noah asked. Her voice was firm. "The one we decide." They sat at her kitchen island with Miko, drawing lines like contracts, no insider chatter. No meetings where both were stakeholders. No pillow talk that sounded like due diligence. "If it's boring, it's safe," Miko said. But boredom wasn't on the menu. 2 days later, another envelope arrived. Not in the lobby this time. Slipped under Elise's door. Inside, a calendar invite printed. Title endings. Host, her ex. Attendees, 2 board members who had long doubted her. Location, a restaurant they used to co-own. Elise's hands didn't shake, but Noah saw her knuckles whiten. "He wants me rattled the week of the final review," she said. "What do you want?" Noah asked. "To walk into that room without flinching. To toast my survival with his glass." The night of the dinner, Noah suggested the impossible. "I'll go with you. As your date. Not hidden. Seen. That breaks our rule," she whispered. "So does being stalked," he said. She studied him. And then, with the faintest nod, agreed. The restaurant hadn't changed. Marble floors, velvet booths, a chandelier that thought it was still 1998. Elise wore midnight silk. Noah wore the only courage he could iron flat. Her ex greeted them at the door, tuxedo like armor, smile like a blade. "Elise," he said smoothly, his eyes sliding to Noah. "Expanding your portfolio." Elise's hand slipped into Noah's steady. "I always invest in growth." Dinner was chess played with forks. Toasts that bit at the edges. Laughter sharp as broken glass. The ex leaned closer during dessert, voice low. "Deals fall apart, darling. Ask your companion. He's had practice." Noah's chest tightened, but his voice came steady. "Some men mistake entropy for strategy. It's cheaper to break than to build." For the first time, the ex's smile faltered. Elise's shoulders eased barely, but enough. It wasn't a victory. Not yet. But it was proof they could survive a room designed to undo them. That night, Elise kissed him not like a transaction, but like relief. For the first time, Noah felt less like a kept man and more like a partner in a war. But the war wasn't done. The next morning, a security clip surfaced online. 10 seconds of grainy footage: Noah entering Elise's garage in a hoodie. Overlaid with a red banner, someone had added access 9:17 p.m. Server breach 9:22 p.m. Correlation dressed up as causation. A narrative too clean to ignore. By noon, his manager called him in. "We're placing you on paid leave," she said gently, "until we sort perception from fact." As he walked out of the office past the bouquet of lilies now wilted, Noah felt the weight of every insult, every rumor, every label. Unemployed, underperforming, and now hacker. That night, Elise would tell him the logs proved the breach came from somewhere else, but the world wouldn't wait for proof, and someone with a master key was framing him. The breach. The clip looped endlessly online. 10 seconds of Noah in a hoodie, hands in pockets, walking through Elise's garage. A red banner stamped across the footage: access 9:17 p.m. Server breach 9:22 p.m. It didn't matter that correlation wasn't causation. It didn't matter that the footage was spliced, edited, weaponized. In the rumor economy, perception was reality. Noah sat in his manager's office, trying not to crumble. "It's not a judgment," she said gently. "Just optics. We'll keep you on paid leave while we sort perception from fact. Paid leave." 2 words that sounded like mercy but felt like exile. Noah nodded, but inside shame gnawed like acid. First unemployed, now untrustworthy. Do I ever escape the label that night? Elise poured 2 glasses of whiskey and slid one to him. "We traced the breach," she said. "It came through a third-party vendor with sloppy security. Logs show the attack originated from an IP block tied to my ex's new venture." Noah looked up, startled. "So it wasn't me." "It was never you," Elise said firmly. "But the world doesn't wait for proof." Maiko laid a folder on the table. Inside, screenshots, network trails, of vendor affidavit. "It's enough for a defense," he said. "Not enough for a conviction. Not yet." Noah buried his head in his hands. "I'm wrecking your life. You're reminding me," Elise said, "that I don't have to live a sanitized one." Her words cut deeper than comfort. They sounded like something else, like confession. 2 days later, Elise scheduled a meeting with the acquiring firm. "Don't defend with emotion," she told Noah as they rode the elevator up. "Defend with receipts." The conference room was all glass and suspicion. Elise laid the packet on the table, her voice glacier calm. "If you want a company that collapses under rumor, buy someone else's. If you want one that hires professionals, traces sabotage, and refuses to bow, sign the deal when you finish reading." The lawyers flipped through the evidence. The silence stretched. Then one of them looked up. "This is compelling. We'll verify." Outside, Noah leaned against a pillar, drained. "Am I ruining your life?" he asked. Elise turned to him. For once, her eyes weren't sharp but soft. "You're reminding me I can be loved without pretending I don't need it." The word loved landed like a foreign language he'd secretly always understood. Later that night, Noah's phone buzzed. A voicemail from his ex. Her voice was tired, not cruel. One sentence, she said. "Ask Elise why her ex still has the building master key." The message ended. Silence followed. Noah's blood went cold. The next morning, when Miko checked the logs, he'd find a second garage entry unassigned just minutes before the breach. And the silhouette caught on camera would wear a wristwatch Noah had seen before. At dinner, on Elise's ex, keys and reckonings. The voicemail wouldn't stop replaying in Noah's head. Ask Elise why her ex still has the building master key. When he told her, Elise's face stilled, then drained of color like tide leaving shore. "He was supposed to return it," she whispered, "when we sold the shared unit years ago." Maiko moved quickly. He pulled building logs, checked fobs and shadow access. There it was. A second garage entry unassigned in the system, time-stamped minutes before the breach. The camera caught only a silhouette. Broad shoulders, sharp jawline blurred by shadow. But the angle revealed a glint on the wrist. A watch. Vintage. Arrogant. The same one Noah had seen gleaming at dinner on Elise's ex. Proof wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was a tick of time caught in a frame. Police, Noah asked. And lawyers, Elise said, already dialing. Her voice had the rhythm of someone who'd stopped asking permission to exist. The complaint she filed read like a battle hymn. "My safety and my company's integrity have been compromised by someone who believes proximity is license." Her pen pressed hard enough to score the paper. The next day, Noah asked for a meeting with his ex. They met in a cafe that smelled of burnt espresso and resignation. She arrived in oversized sunglasses, wary but not cruel. "I shouldn't have posted that story," she admitted before he could speak. "It was petty. I was angry. But I'm not your enemy." "You made me one," Noah said softly. "I made you a warning," she corrected. "But warnings aren't always lies." He exhaled. "Are you happy?" She looked away. "I'm healing." "And you scared," he said. "And beginning." Her eyes glistened, betraying her armor. "Then make it worth the noise." That night, Noah told Elise about the meeting. She didn't sneer. She didn't mock. She just said, "Thank you for not oversimplifying her." It startled him. He realized Elise wasn't asking him to be loyal to her narrative, she was asking him to be loyal to truth, even if it was messy. The acquiring firm verified the breach logs. Their general counsel called Elise. "We have enough to proceed, enough to recommend civil action against your ex for attempted interference." Elise hung up and finally cracked. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent but steady. "I thought I had to be invulnerable to be credible," she whispered. "I was wrong." Noah reached out, tentative. "Can I sit with you?" Her hand found his. "Please." They sat on her couch as the city turned to constellation outside. And for the first time, Elise let someone witness her break. Later, with takeout containers between them, Noah asked the question they had both circled for weeks. "Do we end the arrangement?" Her eyes searched his. "Do you want to?" "I want to call it what it is," he said. "Not training wheels, not transaction, something else." "Eliminate the invoice," she said quietly. "Keep the care." So they did. They deleted the payment app. They kept the calendar. They wrote a new agreement with fewer bullet points and more verbs show up. Ask, witness, rest, apologize, repair, choose. Weeks blurred. Elise fought through boardrooms with her evidence. Noah rebuilt his footing at work piece by fragile piece. They were learning a new language together. One where survival wasn't the only goal. One where intimacy didn't wear a disguise. But every victory has a cost. On the morning the acquisition was set to close, Elise walked out of the boardroom with a sealed folder and a hollow look. "They want me in London," she said. "A 1-year rotation, immediate." Noah's chest clenched. Non-negotiable, strongly preferred. She laughed once, bitter. "For integration, for optics." "What about us?" he asked. Her eyes shimmered. "That's the one term they don't care about." Tomorrow Elise would face a choice: the biggest room of her career, or the first man who refused to reduce her to strength alone. And Noah would have to decide if love meant following or letting go. The choice that names you. The conference room smelled of ink and endings. Pens clicked, papers stacked in tidy towers. The acquiring firm's lead counsel leaned forward, voice smooth as a gavel. "All terms remain as agreed, with one added request. A London rotation, 12 months. Effective immediately." Elise didn't blink. Non-negotiable, strongly preferred. Translation mandatory. In the hallway afterward, Elise pressed her forehead against the cold glass, staring at the city she'd built herself into. "If I go, I become the woman I promised myself I'd be," she said. Her voice trembled, rare and raw. "But I risk losing the man who reminded me I don't have to do it alone." Noah's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her to stay. He wanted to beg, but instead he forced himself to breathe and said, "I don't want to be the reason you shrink. I want to be the reason you take the biggest room." Her eyes darted to his brimming. "And if that room doesn't have a chair for you, then I'll stand," he said simply, "until it does." 2 weeks later, Heathrow smelled of jet fuel and new beginnings. Noah stepped into a rented flat with peeling paint, a hideous rug, and windows that insisted on letting morning in. He'd convinced his manager to let him transfer remote-friendly a client team in the UK hungry for help. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't clean. But it was possible. Elise walked in carrying 2 suitcases, her laugh surprised at the rug. "We can burn it," she said. "Or keep it," Noah replied. Proof of beginnings. In London, they learned new rhythms. Sunday markets with spices that made their eyes water. Weeknight curries too spicy but devoured anyway. Arguments over jet lag and time zones that stole hours like thieves. They weren't perfect, but they were practicing. And practice, Noah realized, was better than performance. On her first day at the new office, Elise stood in front of a skeptical team. No velvet, no shield, just her voice. "I believe stewardship is harder than acquisition," she said. "And I believe people are not costs to be minimized, but capacities to be realized." When she came home that evening, she texted Noah one line: "I chose the biggest room." He replied, "I chose to stand." Months later, the deal closed successfully. Elise's ex collapsed under civil charges. The breach story unraveled, replaced with something more dangerous: silence. Because silence meant irrelevance. Noah returned to full status at his firm. His team welcomed him back with pastries and awkward apologies. He accepted both, though trust would take longer. One Friday night, Elise arrived with takeout and a look. I want to renegotiate, she said. Candles or contracts, he teased. Neither. A ring. The air stilled. Noah stared not because he hadn't imagined it, but because imagining and inhabiting were two different languages. I once called you unemployed and underperforming, he whispered. And you? I once called myself invulnerable, she interrupted. And I wasn't. They laughed, then cried, then wrote their third agreement on the back of the takeout menu. It had no allowances. It had no fine print. It simply said show up, ask, witness, rest, apologize, repair, choose, stay. When they told friends, reactions split like glass. Some congratulated with relief. Some joked badly. A few judged as though love required an origin story that made sense to outsiders. But the city didn't care. The city kept raining forgiving beginning again. One evening, Elise placed a new photograph on the windowsill. This one showed them at dinner the night they walked into her ex's lion's den and didn't flinch. Candlelight softened their faces. Their hands were laced steady. Beside it, still folded, lay the old article about her acquisition. A relic now, not the centerpiece, just proof of survival. As they cooked curry in their tiny London kitchen, Noah lifted her hand and kissed the knuckles where vows live quietly. I thought I found a sugar mama, he said, teasing but tender. You found a partner, Elise corrected. Outside, rain made a cathedral on the glass. Inside, they made promises, not loud, not fragile, just true. And on the takeout menu, still pinned to their fridge, underlined once in Elise's careful hand, the last line of their third agreement read, "We refuse to repeat." Weeks later, Noah caught her at the piano in a rented hall, her fingers tracing the keys. On top sat the photograph of her, and the ex turned face down at last. Next to it, their new photo, their faces lit by candlelight. History beside proof, regret beside choice. And in the quiet, Noah understood he hadn't just disproved the insult. He'd rewritten the story.